Yeah. So we were going to have Marcy McReynolds be our speaker, but she called up or emailed me 2 days ago and said she had the flu and she couldn't come. So, but she recommended Victoria, and luckily Victoria said yes on very short notice, so I'm really grateful. And I'm sure she's going to be wonderful because she has all sorts of experience in teaching, communication. She's a certified mediator and mediation trainer, and she teaches classes in, I have to read this one, conflict resolution, communication, team dynamics, ethics, and human sexuality. But we're not doing that tonight, though.
That's next time.
That's next time, yeah. Victoria says that an ongoing effort in her professional and personal life has been to encourage others and herself to make choices in the moment that create mutual benefit. She's taught communication and conflict resolution in myriad ways for 25 years, with the intent to help teens and preteens, people experiencing homelessness and low income, mediators and parties in conflicts to make healthy, positive choices. She's also an adjunct professor at Warner Pacific University, where she teaches the above courses, as well as team dynamics and human sexuality. Let's see. She believes that each choice we make toward truly listening is a step toward an improved life for each person and ultimately our world. This is like a little tiny bit of her experience. Anyway, thank you, Victoria, and I turn it over to you.
Katie.
So I'm not going to talk about sexuality tonight, but I think
No
we all
shucks.
know
Wow.
that
Dang.
listening and being listened to is a great aphrodisiac. So it has a lot of applications. Okay, so one of the ways I also want to say, as long as we're on that kind of relationship, I guess. The saying that you teach what you need to learn. So when, honestly, Dottie's really nice, but when she told me that Marcy wasn't going to be able to come, then in my mind I went, oh, well, maybe you could get this person or that person. And so I wasn't, didn't really jump up with excitement. But this is an interesting thing. Just trying to listen. I'm imagining that all of you who are here are familiar with the idea of trying to listen within and see what else there might be besides maybe what presents itself. And as I listened within, I told Dottie, I'm feeling called to do this. And whether it's because I need a reminder, well, it is always the reminder to listen more, or not. It was an example of listening within. And so this listening, I think that we're probably, in some ways, the most important person to listen to, at least that higher aspect of ourselves. So I'm really delighted to be here with people who have that kind of interest and perspective. So, trying to figure out, if I stand over here, so this is kind of as much or more for me than for you, but I know I'm a really visual person, and so I can hear something, but then it just kind of goes out my, yeah. So I think having a visual hopefully will help us stay together. You'll be able to stay with me. And feel free to ask if I lost you, because I don't want to lose you. So, I'm already starting off here. Here is, so welcome to the Art of Listening, which is what you thought you were coming to. But that's a really broad term. And you heard the number of classes that I teach, and so my hope, you're spending time here, paying attention. So what do you want to get in return? And my hope is that this will be an opportunity for you to feel excited to gain and make one instead of choice to listen more effectively. So we're always listening, whether we want to or not, all the time. So what do we want to do instead of what we usually do so that we listen more effectively? And by the way, avoid regret. I don't know if any of you have ever felt some regret, or, oh, I wish I had listened more, or if I had been more alert, or I had that experience yesterday. So I was at an event for my granddaughter. It was at her preschool. They were getting grandparents together. And so afterwards, the director talked to us in this big room. So I was sitting in between two women, you know, at those round tables. And this person I had met in line, and I was so interested to talk to her. I wanted to hear her information and experience. So we were talking, and then this woman sits down, a lovely woman. Oh, hi, how are you? Who we are. And then she starts talking. And it's not about what I wanted to listen to. And so I'm just kind of sitting there between them. And you know that I don't think I sighed out loud, but it was a And so how do I that's nice, and I listened to this person. So I didn't do it as well as I would like. And so on the way I'm driving back, oh, what could I have done different? Oh, I'm working on this listening workshop. Maybe I can come up with some of those things. So maybe you've had that experience of being with someone who, the nonviolent communication way of saying it is, uses more words than you want to listen to. And so how do you deal with that? Maybe you just zone out and then say you have to use the bathroom. And maybe there's, and instead of choice that you can do that honors not only what's in it for you, but also what's in it for both of you. Because we need a world that's more like that. So that's why the paper, at the end, like Dottie said, just one if it can be a specific action or a specific shift in attitude, we can really learn so much from each other. That's one thing that I've learned teaching any of you that are teachers. The students get many different things from the same content, and it's so enriching to be able to hear what each person says. So I encourage you to, if you have a thought or an action, to just jot it down. So actually you'll have a chance also to listen effectively so that you can get one idea about how to listen even more effectively. So this is a great opportunity, right? You can practice what you're hearing. So we've already had a beautiful invitation to be present. That was really touching to think about surrounding the earth with love. And so obviously, being present, having all of yourself here is a great and maybe essential foundation for being able to listen. So I just invite you to do whatever works for you if you have to remind yourself to be here again. And I wanted to start off by sharing something. I have to really give gratitude to Glenn and Jackie for introducing me to this book, Gene Keys. How many of you have heard of it or know about it? Did you?
Years ago.
Okay, so because this is IONS, I would never start off this way at a class, but because I know that people here are interested in things like this, and so if you haven't heard about it, you might want to Google it because it's pretty fascinating. And my purpose here tonight is not to go into all of it, but it's talking about aspects of our genetic potential that's in our DNA that we can realize, that is yet to be realized. And as it unfolds, then our behavior changes more easily, and we can do more of that, which I think we long to do, and which the world needs us to do. So, all of us have been listening for a long time. We know about listening, and we know probably what we need to do, but having the motivation to do it in the moment may not be with us. And so my intent in sharing a little bit from this 13th Gene Key, which is titled Listening Through Love, is to help you maybe have a little more enthusiasm or recognize how it is more important to make that little extra effort to get present and listen a little more deeply or thoroughly. So it talks about 64 gene keys, and for each one, the author is Richard Rudd, but it's probably a downloaded message. He looks at these gene keys in terms of what he calls the shadow, the gift, and the city. And these are all at different frequencies. So the lower frequency is discord. The gift of it is a higher frequency, discernment. And then the city, S-I-D-D-H-I, is the highest potential.
What does that word mean?
Awakened? Thank you. Okay. So I just want to read you a little bit about from the 13th gene key. The 13th gene key, which we all have, concerns a single theme, the theme of listening. Through this gene key, we will see how many dimensions there are to the art of listening and how deeply tied it is with the expansion or contraction of human consciousness. At the shadow frequency, this is the shadow of discord, which we certainly are seeing in our world, which is the inability to listen to and learn from our experiences in the world. So an example of that is global warming. We know what our actions are doing. We can see what's happened in the past and what is happening now. But to learn from it and to actually change our behavior is really hard. So he goes on to say, listening is entirely different from hearing. How many of you have heard somebody say, "Oh, I hear you"? How many times have you said that? Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But it's not listening. Hearing refers to the acoustic absorption of auditory information, whereas listening is something that can only be done with your whole being. Whole being, all of us. So I wasn't going to read all of it, but now I'm lost in my notes. What comes next? Okay, here it is. So he pairs up the two gene keys. And so the one that's paired up with this is gene key 7. And its shadow is division, and the gift is guidance, and the city is virtue. So along with its programming partner, gene key 7, this genetic partnership exerts an enormous influence on the direction of humanity as a species. So, in some way that I don't understand, in an energetic way, I think that our listening with love, through love, can help exert an influence on the world. So, as I said, with global warming, so despite what has happened in our past, we go on making the same poor decisions and judgments. So that can be, again, ineffective listening, not really hearing our spouse or our children, or it can be on the level of the earth, seeing what we're doing but not being able to change it. So, so the gene key 13 urges us to listen to and learn from our past, and let's develop the discernment. So move beyond discard to discernment, to stop and make different choices in the moment. So I think in the context, just from the smallest level to the largest level, learning how to listen has value. Mm-hmm. So tonight, two kinds of ways to provide content. So I was fascinated when I saw that there's at least two root words for the word education. Are any of you Latin scholars? I always want to ask because I don't really know how you say this in Latin, and so I don't.
Educara.
Is it educara?
Yeah.
Educara, and then what's this one?
I think educira, but I'm not really sure. The one I've heard so many experts say the first, that, yeah, but Educera, I think, Educara maybe, I don't know.
Oh, well, it doesn't really matter then, I guess. Okay. So educara refers to the kind of education that comes from being instructed, being instilled with something, being informed. So there's something from the outside coming in. And then educera refers to that which is drawn out, wisdom or insight or awareness, often through gentle inquiry. And so for listening, that's something we've been doing since before we were born, right? We were listening in the womb. So we have a lot of, I guess, knowledge on one level. But what we need is to draw that out in the moment when we need it. And so tonight, I'll be presenting some information, some sort of educara, but also asking for your awareness and giving you an opportunity to become aware and to maybe get some insight into what you're doing. So that will be the content of tonight. Plus, that handout that Marcy sent has a ton of stuff in it. So if you haven't already read it, it's useful to read.
It's attached to the meeting notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pages.
It was
Yeah.
a lot of
It's like 13 pages. It's like, yeah, I have time to read that now, and I didn't.
So, in the spirit of Educere, I'd like to ask you some questions. So please raise your hands if you can think of at least one time when you listened effectively, when you listened the way you want to. Powerful. Okay, the most powerful is Stephen. So can you just briefly share a time? Do you remember a time? You do?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
It's right now. I made a decision that I'm going to do that, and here I am.
Hey, you can't be any more be here now than that.
That's great.
I'll get back at you, Stephen. We've known each other for a long time, so. Anybody else have an example that's not now that you're willing to share? Yeah, Lynn, thank you.
I pray with other people at church, and so it's really important to intently listen to what's being said, but also to listen to what's not being said or how people are feeling and asking, Educera, draw out and inquire, to be able to effectively help pray.
So you feel in that situation, you feel like you were listening effectively. So I just want to capture what it was what it is that you're doing. So what would you say?
People who come and they have something that they're something that's not working well in their life, and so they have described their story, and it's important to listen to what
So what
they say.
are you doing though? What do you feel like you're?
I'm listening and then I pray. I pray
But you're
with them out
listening.
loud.
Okay.
You're a minister that's
I'm a minister?
representing.
I'm a
Isn't
prayer
it?
practitioner.
Okay, there you go. That's what
Yeah.
she was after.
Oh, okay. My title.
So your attitude, how do you prepare yourself to do? Is there
I have to
if you
listen.
were but if you were gonna help somebody else learn how to do it, is there other
They would be going
specific
through a number of weeks of training and the prayer steps and various things like that. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm trying to get the operational things that you're doing, like the specific things that you are doing that make you effective. And
Listen.
Yeah, the actual steps that you're taking to be a good listener is what she's asking, I think. Is that correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, when someone comes to me, then we go off somewhere else where we can have quiet time together. We face each other, and I ask how I can support them.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then the place you choose.
Mm-hmm.
One term that I learned through my friend Kathy is gracious space, which she introduced me to it, but it's actually a term that the Center for Ethical Leadership uses in Seattle. Gracious space. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's such a great mnemonic for the kind of space we want to create when there's an important conversation. And so ethical leadership, you get people with a lot of different ideas and views, and how can they have a constructive conversation to create gracious space. So it sounds like you do that. And what did you say? One more thing? Oh, you said one more thing, but I forgot.
Oh, I'm not sure. I said that we face each other, and then I ask how I can support them.
So these are really significant. And now sometimes, and any parent knows that sometimes you have the best conversation with your, especially your teen, if you're not looking at them face to face.
Yes.
But just being fully present and being able to catch all the nonverbals is so important, so that you're listening on so many levels, through your eyes as well as through your ears. And then ask how to support them. This is an interesting thing, because sometimes people just want educare. You just want to exchange information or instruction or how to do it, or advice. They might want advice. But sometimes they just need educare, of helping them see themselves, what they're feeling and thinking and what might work for them. So I think this is great. Do you want advice, or do you want help, just help in seeing what's really going on for you? Anybody else have? Yeah, Barb.
Well, what's triggering in my mind is, for something like 37 years, I was a corporate executive and a management consultant. And people would come into my office and sit down. They'd come in for some reason, and then all of a sudden, out of their mouths would come stories or whatever was going on, and they'd stop and I'd say, I never tell anyone this. And I would gently say to them, this is a safe place. And I never judged.
So they could just feel something about you, huh? This cannot be overstated, how important that is. I was with a group of women, and we were talking about the notion of radical love. Radical love. And I know for me, one time I was invited to do a meditation on that term, and what came up for me was radical safety, providing radical safety, so that we can get to what's most tender and important and core. So it's beautiful, the safety. And so it goes into the kind of space. One more person. Yeah, Joy, is it?
Joye.
Joye.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Joye.
Joye.
Yeah. When I work with my clients, and engage with them, I ask them to share with me what's going on, and then to validate what I think I heard them say, is I ask them, I want to make sure that I got this right. So is it okay if I feed back to you what I think I heard? And then I do that. I always ask for permission, and then I do that, and then I say, did I get that right? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they say, well, you forgot this one part. And then I'll say, okay, good, thank you. And so I'll reiterate what they said.
Yeah. Did it take you a while to learn to do that, do you think? Or get comfortable to do that?
Yes, I mean, I've done a lot of, yes.
Yeah.
The short answer is yes.
So many good things there.
And that goes back to active listening. That I know I learned that back 30 years ago or more where, okay, what I heard you say is this and such, so you have it clear and don't make any assumptions about it. So.
And a follow-up question, is there more about that? I found just really opens up the can of, it could be worms and a can of heavenly light beams. But it brings up stuff that you didn't know was there necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. I took a training course years ago when I was at Sears, and it was in customer service, and the one thing they said was, let the customer rant. And don't interrupt, and just let them go and go and go. And then when they get to the end, ask, is there anything else? And then if they say what else, that's what it is that's bothering them.
Usually, yeah.
That's
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
motivation.
That was the training from Sears,
Yeah.
1979.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure how to ask this. Rant. What do you think about that word? This is the.
Anger.
This is
It's
like
loaded.
this is guess what I'm thinking kind of question. But I like, right, yeah.
Two of the things that I feel offended by when I'm wanting to be listened to are people that interrupt me, or people that are distracted and they're trying to do two things at once. So for me, part of being a good listener is not to be distracted and to totally focus on them and not interrupt them. Give them lots of spaces between what they say because they're processing and something else will come up.
But, thank you, Joy. But what about this word? Yeah, what about that word? Yeah.
Well, I experienced it on Valentine's Day at work. I do give everybody chocolate and I have a fabulous day. And we had moved my station over. I'm a hairstylist. Moved my station. We moved it over because I had no way to get out. The feng shui is horrible where I am. There have been people that have been here 17 years, 23 years, and I'm the new guy.
Oh boy.
And I did the 6 months of being beaten up by don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, right? And so there's not to be offensive, but there's a gal that's Chinese next to me. And man, I've had enough, of a person ranting at me. And so she just came at me. And I finally had to say, stop. I mean, literally, stop. And I can't let it go in my mind. Because then we moved the station, everything's good. And of course, then she's doing the passive-aggressive, doesn't look at you, doesn't talk at you. I mean, so...
It's called a silent rant.
Well, there's that. Yeah. So I have a challenge with that piece. Like I said, if somebody's ranting at you, and it's, because I'm an empath, I feel it all, right? So what do you do about that?
Okay, that's a great segue. Yeah, darling.
Because I have to work with this person, right?
I appreciate what you're saying because one of my coworkers is just very, very negative all the time, and I've spent like the last 3 or 4 years trying not to listen to him because I feel like if I do listen to him, he'll talk to me more. So, and that's not right of me to say, but I spend a lot of time trying to deflect him, and like the negativity is very draining, and I'd love to know like how to get past that as well. So thank you.
Because I'm a loving person, I get that, but boy, when somebody pushes you like that, how do you set up that healthy boundary and still work with that person right next to you? It's like, what do you do?
So, darling, your person talks to, what is...
I'm sorry.
No, he likes to talk, he's not ranting it.
He rants.
He does rant.
He throws temper tantrums, he rants, he curses, he has a habit of like, when he's angry, he'll hit the desk. It's just like a lot of very childish behavior. And we're all grown-ups, so I don't know why it's happening, but it's very difficult to work with. And I find myself really shutting down at work when it comes to interacting with my coworkers because I don't want to interact with him. And so if I just go to work and I put on my headphones or I turn away from everybody, then all of them can laugh and joke all day and have a good time, and I could not be so affected by him, I guess.
So I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay. Yes.
Now.
I know this is way different. Sorry that I
Well,
did that.
but
Oh,
I'm
it's very important.
holding these things. Let's just see what happens here.
Okay.
Because in my mind there is some. Okay, we're just going to go forward, and I'm not disregarding this, but I want to approach it. I'm hoping that we can approach it from a different way. So we might not, but. So, okay, so, yay, we all do know how to listen effectively. We have the idea, but it's hard to do. So a second question is, please raise your hand if you sometimes don't do what you know or think you should be doing in listening.
Almost constantly.
Never. I don't think that any of us is perfect. How about you?
Gee.
Rephrasing it.
Yeah. So we're among friends.
Changed my mind.
Listeners Anonymous or something? I don't know. Okay.
Just a quick question. I'm sitting here just thinking that we listen in a myriad of ways, and the focus of this is interpersonal listening. Okay.
Well, intra and inter, in my mind. But we'll get to that a little bit. Yeah. So
So I'll stay focused on interpersonal listening.
okay. All right. Then how many of you would please raise your hand if you believe that some people are more important and valuable than other people are?
Didn't hear the question.
Now, let me read it again.
I've been there in a few moments.
How many of you believe
I'm the
that
most
some
important
people
person in
are
this
either
room.
more important and valuable than others?
In respect to what?
Well, this is a trick question.
So you're really asking us if we judge anybody, and yes, I think
Pretty
I
much.
do.
It is a trick
Oh, yeah.
question.
Good time,
Good
believe
catch.
me.
It is. So, yeah.
I'm hoping the segue that you're looking for from rant is when people are ranting, it suggests negative. And I think when people are talking, they're talking because they want to be heard and they need to be heard. And the listening is, we either shut down and say no thanks or open to it. And like with the person to your left, who you didn't care to hear too much from, she wanted to have an ear. And I think when people open up, we need to maybe open up to them.
Yeah.
But maybe we're not in the space to do that at that time. Maybe it has to be by mutual agreement that
Right,
this is not, you want to talk in the space and that's wonderful, but right now, I can't receive it. So maybe it has to be by mutual agreement that.
And maybe finding that positive spin or out or passing till later is where we need to head with it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tricia.
Thank you. Yeah.
The question you had was, have you raised your hands if there was, if
you
someone
believe
believed that someone was more valuable or important?
If some people are more important and valuable than others.
And to me, that brings it back to the beginning when you spoke to the woman on your right and the one on your left. And there's a woman in my friendship group that is endless talking. I mean, she'll go on, and then it's anyway is her tiny little pause anyway, and anyway, and anyway. So I'm visiting with this person on my right who we're having a very nice, intimate conversation. We're at a big table of 10 people. So this one that is an endless chatterbox, she's catching my ear over here about what's going on with this person down here, and I'm listening here to Dottie, and I know her enough that I'm not going to stop hearing her unless I say, wait a minute now, Susie Q. I really need to focus on what Dottie is sharing. Can we just hold it right now and let her be? Because otherwise it's domineering. So this conversation at that moment is more important to me than hearing what's going on with this person down the end from you.
Right.
So that, in a way, is answering your question, I think, as far as
Exactly.
I can't be okay here, and pretty soon this one says, hey, we're in the middle of a close conversation. So my listening wants to be here. And maybe that, I mean, she knows me well enough that I've said it quite a few times that, okay, I need to focus here. And she's not offended because she'll go to the next person. So it's just, you know, it's just that way. We're good friends, but hold it.
Yeah.
To me, that's being more like a receiving garbage. You know, what is the value of what she's saying?
The value's not there.
Yeah, it's maybe not there. So it's more like she's just dumping this endless.
It's just an addiction. I think.
Yes.
Well, I just took a personality care workshop, and the lady that does it, B.J. Stromey, divides people into 4 categories by name of birds. And the person that you're describing is called a songbird. Twitter, 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 Twitter. And then there's the heron, which is me, which is pretty quiet and spend a lot of time alone and focus and concentrate. And then there's the raptor, that if you're around a raptor, you feel like you're going to be lunch because they're all business and they're in charge and all of that. And what's the other one? Oh, the dove is the helper. Wants to do things for you, wants to help, and wants to give. And so once I learned that, I realized that the talkers are just, they're naturally that way. I don't take it personally because that's just their personality.
That's true.
But I can't handle it. It's way too much for me.
Yeah, Paul, what were you going to say?
I get what you're talking about. It's an interesting question. I guess I tend to look that I can learn more from you, and I want to, which is why I'm willing to give you time to share. Some people will approach me in the same way, and I will be specific to see, so what is it about me that you would like to know? So that we can have an honest conversation, or are they just wanting to make chit-chat?
Right.
And with respect, I think it's totally okay for us to establish clearly our boundaries and say to that songbird that I'm engaged in a meaningful conversation right now, not with you. I'm serious, because that's the only way you get through to them.
And they don't really mind either.
They don't. No. But it's really okay for us to be really clear about our boundaries and our expectation of others as they approach our boundary.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, okay, yeah.
Could we say that by in another way, but include them? Because in my situation like that, and where I'm at I would say, I really want to ask this person a question and include them in on hearing that question that you want to hear from the other person. Include them in on listening and the answer.
I don't have a problem with that, but most of the time, if I'm dealing with a songbird, they absolutely have no absolute interest in me whatsoever.
But you see, at least you've been inclusive.
It's just Twitter.
I don't need to be inclusive with that kind of person.
True. Yeah. So I don't have an answer to this, but what my inquiry is, and desire to move, to elevate the frequency of my thinking about people. I don't want somebody to say, the golden rule, think about other people the way I want them to think about me, that kind of thing. I don't want people, if I'm upset, for them to label it a rant doesn't feel good.
Right.
So what I'm suggesting is, in terms of being able to listen more effectively, is to check how are we just labeling and categorizing and objectifying the person. Can we elevate that a little bit, and so that our energy, when we set boundaries or express our desire, can it be different? It's kind of like what Kristen was saying, what I think you were saying, Kristen, is to elevate our own energy for how we think about others and label what they're doing, so that, and then open up, ask from within, what is a way to deal with this? We may not get a response, but it seems like a really important direction for us to go in. So listening through,
Could you say it a little kinder, like, I really want to hear what you have to say, but I'm in a conversation here. Can we get together in about 5 minutes or 10 minutes when I'm finished here? And then
that's a
at least
possibility.
it's not with everyone.
Yeah.
Not with everyone.
Yeah. Or I don't know what's upsetting you. I'm sorry that, I don't know. I mean, but this is a time to just be open to, allow something different and not fall back into the labels and things that we wouldn't like other people to think about us.
I think
or to treat us
there's
in
people
that way.
that, like we're dealing with clients, the different people live hour to hour. You get the people that just keep hitting the ball at you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I like a conversation when we hit the ball, and I'll hit the ball back, and then I'm not drained. Otherwise, I'm like standing there, a captive audience, to all of their negativity.
Yeah.
I'm the lowest paid psychologist in town because I'm absorbing. The benefit is you get a haircut with it too. But so and then there's people that they just talk.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If someone never asks a question about you, then to me I've learned, whoa, then I take a lot of potty breaks to go to the back room and, put them under the dryer and get rid of them.
Well, there's something
But
that
it's interesting because, I am an effective empathic person
Yeah.
too. So, but there are those people that are toxic, and they need to get it out. And I get that, and it is true to set those boundaries, but then you're boundary-less.
Yeah.
That's the.
Well,
that's
caring
the-
for yourself and caring for the other. So just to contemplate the whole idea of, is there another way to deal with this that would feel better to me and to them? I don't know, but I think there is insight available, and we can experiment. Yeah, Nancy.
I have a question, and I think it hasn't been addressed yet. I know this one person, and your people in the room will be having conversations, and they'll walk in the room, say if it's a gathering, and they'll blurt over everybody and be the center and be talking very loudly over talking, and nobody can have a conversation. It just takes over the whole room. Now, if I'm with this person one-on-one, they're fine. But you put them in a group, so what do you do with a situation like that?
Well, that's so. What? How much?
I don't know if that's going to help.
So,
I
but
just do one-on-one with her.
Glenn talked about, are we talking about interpersonal? And my thing is intrapersonal. What? So that's a good question to ask yourself. How would I want, if I were that person, how would I want them to, just to sit with it? Because I think there's a lot of insight that we could receive if we ask sincerely and just wait. I don't know the answers, and they probably will vary from situation to situation.
Yeah.
What would you
But-
like to do that you don't give yourself permission to do?
Oh, that's a good question.
I really don't know what to do in that situation. I
What would
really
you,
don't.
what
I
would you
just
like to
went-
affect?
I'd like her not to disrupt everybody's conversation and take over the whole room. And people are just used to it and they just kind of go on, I don't know what to do with it. I go to lunch with this person sometimes, and I'll go to a movie with them. One-on-one, she's totally different. Totally different.
Can you
one-on-one.
tell her that? Can you give her that feedback?
Not likely.
Why?
Practice
Why not?
E.F. Hutton.
She's not the kind of person to be open to that. Go ahead.
Excuse me, have you asked this person if they wear hearing aids?
Oh.
I'm serious.
Yeah,
I'm
serious.
serious. If
She
you're
doesn't.
going
She
deaf
doesn't. No.
and you cannot
That's
hear
true.
normally,
Yeah.
then you're going to walk into a room of crowded people and talk, like so you can hear yourself, but you can't hear yourself even over the roar of the people. So that's why you scream.
Well, she usually does hear fine. She just likes to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Is the feeling I get.
Well, that's why I was asking because a
it's just
person
more of
who
a
is
center of attention.
who has hearing loss,
Yeah.
one-on-one is fine. Okay, a lot of times I have hearing loss, and there's a certain pitch that I cannot hear.
Mm-hmm.
If it matches my tinnitus, how many people here have tinnitus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. We have hearing loss. So when it comes to like crowded situations, like in a bar or where there's no insulation for sound deadening, oh my God.
I know this is just a house, but yeah.
Yeah, you should talk to her about hearing loss.
That's the case.
We should always ask her.
Well, we can come up with a lot of assumptions in our own stories, and really the courage to, getting in your heart that you really want to be of service to her, maybe, and trying. And what's the worst thing that could happen? And could it be repaired? So, the courage to come. But all good.
Something that I've found very, very useful is in the one-on-one situation where you say she's pretty okay, would be if there's something that you do that is troublesome to people, would you like to know about it? That's the key question. Would you like to hear about X? Because when they say they would like to hear, they have given you permission, and it automatically lowers the threshold of resistance. If not to say that there won't be some, but it opens up the possibility that you can have a meaningful conversation and she can get how you care about her and why you said that.
Yes.
But the key question is, would you be willing to hear if ...
That's a great idea. The whole idea of asking permission.
Yeah.
I have some information that you might be interested in. Would you like to hear it? And if not, then, we've offered, and
Something I found in my work up on the mountain, I'm a ski instructor, that I've really started doing fairly recently. And that is, you've paid a lot of money to come for my help as a coach. Where are you right now? What's on your mind? And I allow people to just express whatever's on their mind. If it was the crappy drive up, the price of the lift ticket, how much I cost, or just something going on in their work world. And I give them permission to express that and so on. And at the end, I'm working to listen through love, and I'd say, can we now just be present, here and now, where we're at this point in time? And rather than thinking about it, feel it. Because that's what we're going to spend the next 2 hours, is feeling energy run through our body as we attempt to hurdle down this mountain. And it's works. It's been a nice little phrase that brings people to the present. And it's really interesting how much of our time we don't spend in the present.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So what is the phrase?
Yeah, what
What
was
is
the
the phrase?
phrase again? What's your phrases?
What's on your
What's
mind?
on your mind?
Oh, what's on your mind?
Right now.
Right now, yeah.
That's a great great technique. Thank you.
And that is listening with love, Paul.
Yeah.
That's
I've come to
last
learn that.
page.
It just started out as a tool because I was getting very frustrated by having to work through their reasons or just their not being present.
Yeah.
Once people become present,
Yeah.
we really drop out of our minds and into our bodies. And then we can have an extraordinarily ecstatic time out on the slopes.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And what did you say? What was your question?
Yeah, I loved
Oliver?
yours.
Oh,
Would you want
Would you be
someone-
willing to hear?
would you be willing to hear dot, dot, dot? I'll just leave it at that.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everything you're talking about is, I had a very difficult
Bless you.
thing, like similar to what was going on. But this person was manipulative and controlling too. And there were situations that were set up that I had a real challenge, and finally something happened, and I knew that I couldn't ride with that person anymore. You know, because there was a pattern that kept happening, and it was affecting me, really affecting me. And so I decided that I wasn't going to take any of that person's offers anymore, because it was a way to manipulate me, and then to catch me, and it was like, I can't do this anymore. So I waited, and I wrote this long letter out of love, just love, and recognized, okay, that I couldn't speak up, you know, because the domineering kind of presence that she had, and I couldn't seem to speak up, so I just decided I'll do it the easy way and back away. So I stayed away, didn't call, didn't do anything for 2 or 3 months, and I never mailed the letter. I sat there, and should I mail it, should I not mail it? But I wrote it all out in my heart, how I felt, to my friend. And then she called me, and she asked me if I would join her in something, and I said, no, I really can't. I really can't anymore, you know. I says, but I would like very much, would you be willing that we can sit and talk? Because I would like you to hear how I'm feeling. And I value our friendship so much, and yet I can't continue. And I would like you to listen why. Would that be okay? And it turned out, she said yes. She said yes. And now we're continue to be friends, you know. And she listened, and it really was healing. Whether she chose to change her behaviors was another thing. And then I let it go, and for 6 months everything went great, and then it sort of, something else happened again. I like, oh, give her another chance. Oh no, her behavior hadn't changed. So I, again, just became silent because she didn't hear. I felt like I wasn't heard. At first I was heard, and I thought maybe it would go somewhere. But I had to come to the acceptance of who she is. You know, this is who she is. And in her own time, like maybe the genes you're talking about, in her DNA, it's her personality, it's her pain, it's whatever her background is. It's like maybe in time. But I'll still accept her as a friend, but now I know what I'm set up for. You know, I learned from it. It's like, what did I learn? And what am I choosing to do about it? So I think that one-on-one talking, like with maybe the office employee, or it's kind of short with what you got going there. But, you know, finding some time to ask somebody. The imago therapy is what you were all talking about there. The Hendricks did this back about 30 years ago.
Imago?
You know, the validation.
M-A-G.
The model therapy, yeah. And you can go online and learn about that. It's the validating. Do I hear more? Do you have more to say? You know, Hendrix work.
Yeah.
It's great work learning how to listen. And setting at a time, a safe time, when they're all ranting and getting all upset with an interpersonal person or something. Gee, can we find a time that we can talk? Because you know that's not going to go anywhere, that nobody's going to hear you.
Right.
They have to calm down. So it's like, maybe can we talk tomorrow or next week? And it gives them time to calm down.
Right.
And think, and then you can have a conversation.
And you had done a lot of internal conversation yourself. So it sounds to me like you started within.
Yes,
You
I'm
noticed
an
what you were
introvert.
feeling.
Yes.
You looked at your judgments of her manipulative,
Yes.
and then you got in touch with love. So you did so much preparation for yourself through your own dialogue with yourself. It sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I have.
So I guess that's what I'm encouraging you to do.
It's
at a
easier
level
for-
that
I'm
maybe
sorry.
sometimes we do it, but
Yeah.
we can always do it
Right.
more.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but that,
No.
again, the personalities are, are you an introvert or are you, like that other person, an extrovert?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there's the personalities and how we operate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even that category though can. But I guess I don't like being labeled. I can
Sure.
find it. I
Sure.
can find it useful
Right.
to think I understand about myself or others, and I don't know. I'm trying to hold those lightly and expansively more than. Yeah. So okay. This is so. Is this good? Because I did have some activities, and we don't have to do them because it seems like.
Could you
this-
tell us what the activities would be?
Yeah, I wanted you to just have experience listening to each other or being listened to briefly, and then but this is really rich too.
It sure is.
And so,
I would like
and
to
there were
hear
two
activities.
times when I was going to give you that opportunity. So maybe we'll skip the first time and just. So yeah, did you?
I just want to say, I'm hearing, there's, I think was alluded to, there's so many different kinds of listening, and listening to someone who's looking for prayer, or listening over here, and listening to someone who's just dumping garbage, are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And the world is so very noisy, we cannot listen to everything. There's just so much noise. So when you're, listening with intention, as you're doing, is completely different from just the, endless, I'm going to say garbage that you may be receiving. And you can't receive it all. I don't think you can. So it's very different things. That's very purposeful listening, as opposed to someone who's just, going on and on. And you have to make those decisions that, where can I put my attention? And what's really important, because who's got enough energy for all of that?
That's true.
It's very different
Yeah.
listening.
And though maybe just like somebody who's using more words than I want to hear at the moment, or someone who is expressing more emotion than I can deal with at the moment, but to name it in a way that has sort of compassion for the other human being and compassion for myself. I don't have the resources, I don't have the time, I don't have the desire. But what I can do is hold compassion for that person and hope that they get what they. I mean, so that shift toward love on whatever level, away from labeling or away from discounting or away from demeaning. At least holding or naming what's happening in a different way. And I think it has an effect. I don't know how, but I feel better if I do that. So, whenever I can do that, I should say. Yeah. I'm working on it. Yeah.
I am working personally with the idea, for instance, like if I'm listening as a prayer chaplain to someone's story, you know, where they're hurt or what's going on with them. And rather than absorbing the story, to observe the story. And so I can observe with empathy, but I don't have to absorb with sympathy.
What does that mean, observe the story?
I like that.
What does that mean?
It means, I heard somebody say like watching a movie. So you're personally listening and hearing, but you're not taking in the pain or the angst, or, you know, opening your pocketbook to give them money because they don't have any.
Lynn, what was that? So you observe with empathy, not, and what was that?
Absorb.
Absorb.
We're not putting any attachment to what you're, to what the person's saying personally. You're observing what
You're
you're saying.
observing what's going on without
Attaching
the
to-
sympathy. It's the empathy, but not the sympathy.
I would like to add to that. And what I'd like to add is that it's also important for us to do that with ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And to be able to witness ourselves and not always
Self-love.
live.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to say, as you were talking, I was going back and looking at the 13th gene key, because as it's discord, discernment, and empathy, and that's what you were saying. You're listening to the discord, but you're not going into the discord. You're dealing with discernment of the discord, and then you go into a true empathy with them. And
well said.
That's what she had written down
That's-
initially with that.
Yeah,
Just with the communication of love.
Yeah. So it's that. So what I understand from this gene key stuff. See, I feel like what I just did, that doesn't honor the information. So with the gene key information, I'm trying to be sensitive to the words that I use. So that maybe the only thing that we have in our power in the moment is to discern. Maybe not to act on it, but to discern. Oh, okay. So it feels to me like that person is ranting. This is an example for me. I want to see more of what person in distress. I don't want to demean or discount what's happening. I'm going to relabel it in my mind or whatever. You know, do you see what I'm kind of saying? So just to see, and I have a choice in how I see and think about what's happening, even if I don't have the power or the energy or the space to do anything about it. And so to just start that process toward seeing more choices and hopefully receiving more energy or power, insight to actually do something.
But isn't just holding presence and allowing that person to be or to do without any response from you, isn't that also the service?
Okay, so did you, so hear what you said. You said, isn't just holding presence.
Yes.
Is it just to be present? Is it just present?
It's not little.
Well, I don't mean to demean it. What I'm saying
Little.
is simply holding
But I'm
presence.
saying this
Yes.
is something we do all the time. Oh, it's just me. Oh, I just need some help. We demean and discount so often. So being present is huge.
Yeah.
Right, and that's my question to you.
Oh, I forgot your question now. So holding
Now I
presence.
feel demeaned. It was just Steve.
I got excited about how big it is what you said.
It's not just holding, it is being present.
It's
not-
the word just.
Isn't
It's
the
the word
simple
just that
act
she's-
of holding presence?
It is simple in concept, it's maybe not so easy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. That's huge.
You mean not try to change anything or do anything? Just
Just
be
yeah.
present
So
But you're serving the person by doing that, because as you hold presence, like I'm holding it now for you, it creates the space for you to be who you are, and gives you that recognition as humanity.
seeing them as an important and valuable person. Yeah.
So that's the act of love.
Yes.
Does that mean you always have to listen to them?
No.
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 It doesn't.
And that's
No,
why I
it
said, no,
doesn't.
stop.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was a safety net for me to push back. You know, and hold that presence. No, there is sometimes that you say no.
That's right.
That there is not a
Exactly.
space that you can hold because you're being attacked.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you know, believe me, I hold gracious space for people all day long. But when you're with that coworker that constantly comes at you, they shame you, blame you, guilt you.
Can you be the observer
I have been for 6
But, I mean,
months,
can you-
and I'm finally saying no to it.
instead
That's-
of reacting
You have to stand
to
your
it?
ground.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to stand your ground.
Amen.
Okay, well, I do want to move us on because this is, I
Figure out a
really
way to
appreciate
shut her
what
down.
everybody has said. Yeah,
I was just gonna say that, I keep looking at that word rant and it came up as an acronym, releasing anger, negativity, trespassing.
That's a good one.
And it really goes right to what speaks to the heart of, you know, being
You know,
your
Victoria,
because when somebody's
I
ranting,
just got back
they
from
may
Europe.
be,
uh-huh.
when somebody's ranting, they may be here now, but they're not present.
No.
They're ranting
Yes.
about
Something in
discharging
the past.
distress.
Yeah.
And so then we feel trespassed again.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's,
So I have a question for you.
Okay, wait, Paul was going to say something.
What was
Well,
that?
my comment was, it's interesting, as we're talking about listening here. I just got back from Europe for a couple of weeks there and had opportunity to sit down both after ski and in meals with folks from, golly, around the world, but particularly Austria, Switzerland, Germany. And one of the common questions was, you know, we watch on TV and you guys don't listen. You just talk at each other. Speaking of Americans.
Wow.
And it's no wonder you have the problems you have, was their statement. And they said, we're a little fearful because we have energies that are taking us in that direction. And that bothers us. Because the way we've made it in the world here was we had to learn how, especially after the war, to get along with each other and to move forward.
Yes.
And that's an important lesson for maybe you all to learn, is how to sit down over a cup of coffee. Number one, take the time to do that and actually have meaningful conversation with each other about a topic.
Yes.
And their message really was listen. But as well as, but they're just kind of blown away by the media activity they see us doing. And I said, well, that is it certainly does begin to define where large segments of our population are. I would like to think that on smaller scales we're different. But do we have some things to learn? We certainly do.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
a much younger
that's
country than
interesting
they are.
feedback.
Good
Sure.
answer. They learn.
Yeah.
A couple other questions there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to come from left field here, and I'm going to ask a hypothetical question. Is it possible that a rant is a cry for help?
Yes.
Because she was saying it, discharging distress. She's in distress. And so that, you know, even just labeling that in your mind, you can still not want her to trespass
Oh, yeah,
on you.
of course.
But you can have a little more compassion for both her.
One time I did something that I'd never done before. It just kind of popped out of my mouth. Somebody was ranting at me, and I said to them, wow, it really sounds like you've had a rough day. And boy,
I
their
didn't hear-
whole
say
face
again?
changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of
And
them.
they start,
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, wow, it sounds like you really had a rough day.
Uh-huh.
And so, I don't know why I said that, but the whole demeanor changed and said, yeah, this happened and that happened. And he finally had somebody listening to him, and all the rant went away, and it was a conversation where he was unloading and talking about stuff, but not at me.
Right.
And I went, wow, that was an interesting experience.
Yeah. And you don't know where it came from?
No, well, at that time I didn't. That was many years ago.
Ah.
Before I got into all this personal growth stuff.
But it still came.
Yeah.
I'd like to second the point that you're either crying out for love or giving love.
That's right.
And the proper response in both cases is to love back.
So that phrase that you used,
Sounds like you've had a rough day.
yeah,
Or
you've
whatever.
had or are having, right? Yeah. You've had.
Well, I usually, I think I said it in the past tense, like
No, I'm just saying it could be,
yeah.
you could say it,
Yeah, had a rough day.
the whole idea, just observing with.
But I was astounded at the transformation. I'm like, wow.
Well, when she said, sounds like you're having a rough day, she had an understanding. She was listening, and that person felt heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it goes back to that basic need that we all have. I see you.
Yes.
I hear you.
Yes.
You know,
See and hear.
I see you. I hear you.
And how do we
I
see
believe
them?
you.
But the question is, how do we see them? Are we seeing them through a label? Or are we seeing them as a hurting human being?
But in this case, the listening is just the acknowledgement that of connecting with that person. You know, for me, that's seeing that person. Yeah, and there is no judgment there.
It's generous listening.
Yeah.
Generous listening, yeah.
Well, or I just refer to it as validation,
Yes,
because
same thing.
you're saying you are valuable. I'm giving you my time and my energy to mirror what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
I had a really interesting experience. There was this person. They had all kinds of really terrible things happen to them, and basically they were completely disowned from their family. And thrown out on the street, and literally told, you should be in the gutter, you and your family, that's it, you're out of the family, kind of thing, completely disowned from their family, raised in the West Hills. So I listened to this long, detailed story for probably a year and a half or so, and maybe 2 years, and then suddenly things, and I kept validating what they were saying, and finally they started having this transformation occur in their life, and now it looks like they may actually start to have a conversation with their family. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm anticipating it will. But it took a whole lot of listening. I mean, of several hours a day, but finally, this is making a big difference in their life. So, that's the real power of the love of listening and validating what someone's what they perceive their experience to be.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yay.
Yeah.
Quantum mechanics says that you can, what is it, that you perceive, perception changes?
Yes.
Or not, right? Yeah. And so I think the way a person feels perceived changes them over time.
Absolutely.
Like Don Quixote, I love this, how he changed Aldonza to Dulcinea.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. This woman who was seen as a whore and a prostitute and of no value, Don Quixote comes along and sees her as Dulcinea,
Yes.
And at the end of the movie, she has stepped into the way she was seen. So what a gift. What a gift to do. Yeah, so it sounds like you're giving that gift.
So, prior speaker, Paul Levy, his central thesis is we are co-dreaming up reality. And how we perceive, how we intend, literally changes the reality that we experience. And that the other person experiences as well. Like you're saying.
Co-what?
dreaming up reality together.
Co-creating.
There are no neutral thoughts. There are no neutral thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, this is so beautiful, huh? No, that's very clear. Yeah, Terry?
Yeah, so my question is, are we listening, are we better listeners today than we were 30 years ago?
What'd you say?
Are we better?
I don't know. I don't. What do you think?
What?
What do you think?
What do I think? I think we're worse.
Because
Are you talking collectively
Yeah.
or individually?
Yeah,
Okay,
as a society, as a culture, because technology is so freaking powerful that these concepts are in our heart. This is our heart, right? This is our heart. But for my kids and my grandkids, they have they've been raised on 10, 20-second bites. And they've done studies now that show that attention spans are about as long as a gnat's ass. And
That's
it's
really
just
small.
it's just it's a big fight
so
that we need to do.
that's a great segue to our becoming better models and examples. Because I don't think there's a lot of help to listen well in our society these days. So listening effectively. What does that even mean? What does that mean? What's something that it can mean?
Honestly, authentically, being there.
The other person feels heard.
Yeah, being present.
Okay, so because we don't have very much time, that is so true. There are so many ways you could answer that. Yeah. And a way is, are you getting the effects that you want for yourself and for the other? So are you listening in a way that affects you in the way that you want, yes, and the other? So just kind of sit with that for a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so then, and it can mean something different, but I think it is an interesting thing to just gauge how am I feeling, how is that other person feeling, what impact am I having, and is there a shift that I can make to improve those, at least for myself, but ideally for me and for we. Okay, so there's so many different styles of listening, so I just want to name them because that deep empathic listening isn't gonna, you're talking to somebody at Fred Meyer, the clerk, and so there's conventional listening, which is just like small talk or shop talk at work. It's like, oh, when is that deadline it's gonna be? So, and what are the effects of conventional listening, usually?
I'm guessing information.
Information,
Or
right.
goals.
Pardon?
You're setting goals.
You can set goals, yeah.
It's more out there. It's all out there,
It's-
usually
yeah.
conventional.
Right.
It's all about business or
How's the
intellectual
weather?
or, it's not so much within, I think.
Right, yeah, it's kind of acknowledging the person, lighthearted banter, how's the weather? But this is important. If people don't talk to you or acknowledge your existence, it's, oh, that's a pretty, like, I like your red jacket, or, so sometimes.
It's an introduction to conversation.
Yeah, or it's, and I mean, if people stay stuck here, I mean, honestly, I think there's some families sometimes that they don't really know each other. They don't really know what's going on. So, pardon me?
Surface.
Yeah, it's more surface.
It's safe.
Yeah. There.
For the most part.
Unless you're a Democrat, don't you? Anyway, so and then there's what can be called evaluative, kind of judgmental or reactive. So this is where you, somebody has, how do I say, let me see if I have So you're listening to agree or disagree. You're listening to judge. You're assuming. You're blaming. It's like, you know, you're asking that why question. Of like, Oliver, why did you do that? So what's the message here when I ask it in that way?
Depends on the projection I lay on to the listening.
Yeah. But if, you know, it sounds blaming.
Yeah, it
right?
sounds
I'm
blaming,
not
but it could
really
be you're
understand.
you're wanting information. I mean, that you're really wanting, you're confused. But the
tone
conventional
matters.
one, yeah,
The
absolutely
tone
blaming.
matters. So this is pretty discounting, really. And sometimes this is all some people receive from the other, like especially in the parent-child relationship. It's kind of, you know, I love you, so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you all the ways that you're doing something wrong.
Just the word
not
reactive.
enough. Pardon me.
Just the word reactive is you're acting again as you have before. It's
that's a great
that reaction
point.
is the same as I've always had when I evaluate what you're doing. So
Yeah.
it's like boom.
Right.
There's really, it does sound very judgmental, and then the same old message that we hear all the time, or maybe we've said all the time.
It's true. We
rather
get stuck
than
in the script.
responding in a,
Yeah.
in a compassionate way.
Right. And what's interesting about this word is that if you move the C, yes. Oh,
Creative.
becomes creative. So the way you see someone, yeah,
Oh, boy.
really matters.
Wow.
Yeah. So we call, you know, so I want you, as I'm going through this, kind of just think about what % of time you spend in these different styles. And then explorative is it's like search, you know, I'm listening to understand more. So they're asking the questions of who, what, when, where, and how. Not yeah. So the attentive, though, this is the most, I think, fulfilling and mutually beneficial. So in the communication class I teach, these are the steps that they encourage people to follow to listen attentively. So to start off by attending with your whole body, just like the Gene Key said. So if I'm listening to Amy, to listen with my eyes, to take you in, to take in how you're doing, to show you that I'm there for you. And I listen, of course, with my ears. And I'm tracking what you're saying. And then acknowledge. So you're talking and oh, really? Wow, sounds frustrating. So I'm letting you know that I'm hearing, but I'm not interrupting. And then this one, for my students, this seems to be, they want to jump in and ask questions instead of, one of you said this, say more, or who said
Tell
that?
me more.
Tell me more. Yeah.
That was
So
Oliver.
if they, who said that?
Oliver.
Yeah. So
We're blaming it on Oliver.
so tell me more.
Tell
So,
me more. That's what you said. It was wonderful.
so if they stop or pause rather than jumping in with a question, to just, well, can you say more about that, or
How do you
what
mean
else?
is another way to say it.
Yeah, something like that.
How
So
do you mean?
inviting. What's the downside of a question?
Redirects the conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
An implied answer.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a leading question. Well, it kind of can take control of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it interrupts their flow, and they may just shut down. And it's like, somebody was saying, yeah, if you keep inviting, then really probably what's most important will come out.
Come at
It
the
may not
end.
Come
Right.
out
Yeah.
until then. Yeah, so what is this? No, I'm just gonna tell you. So patience, getting yourself in a patient, interested space is so important. And then summarizing, which just really is clarifying. It's kind of like what you were doing so beautifully. Well, let me let you know what I've heard, what I think I've
Right.
heard. And with an inquiry, sometimes when people say, well, you think this and you feel this, and they're saying it as if that's definitive instead of, well, it sounds like you think this and feel this. This is right. Do you want to say anything more about that? Yeah. And then, if you need to ask questions. So, what I'd like you to do in the
10 minutes, 7 minutes.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, so use your paper. I would like you to just sit quietly and just listen within what comes up when you ask yourself these 3 questions. And if these 3 questions don't do it for you, ask your own question. But in order for you to have something specific to take, I think it might be helpful if you think of 1 to 3 people in your life that you would like to shift a little bit how you listen to them. So it could just be 1, it could be 2, and one of those people could be yourself. So just identify 1 to 3 people that you would like to listen to a little differently. And in your mind, kind of, specify that, or just what could I do instead of what I have been doing. And then to have the motivation to actually do it, ask yourself, what's in it for me to listen in this way instead of how I have been listening. And then ask yourself, what's in it for we, for our relationship, for them, and him, her, and me. And so when you maybe take a couple minutes to do that and just see what comes up for you. And then if you see, then I would like you to have a chance to have a conversation with somebody else. So you can kind of look around and see if somebody else is.
Why don't we just do it with the next door person so we don't have time to.
Okay, you can certainly do it with the next door person unless that person's still writing and if you see somebody else who is eager. So did you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So the first step is really to listen within and just see what comes up for you about a person or persons you want to listen to differently, and if so, how. And then what's the benefit? What's in it for me to actually make this effort, and what's the benefit for both of us? But yeah, that's true. Right. And then have some time to share. So we have, I'll tell you when you have only 5 minutes left.
We need to do 5 minutes for the.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you when 2 minutes has gone by.
Now, are we supposed to share it with somebody?
After you've listened within, then yeah, I want you to just share with each other what has come up, and so take turns. So like Diane, if you're talking to Darlene and you're talking first, then Darlene, just do your best to do this, and then switch. Okay. Question? Okay. Okay. I just want to thank all of you for the things that you shared.
Stepping up to the plate at such short notice.
Yeah.